Welcome back, watch people. Now, yesterday I posted a video in which I aired a conversation between myself and a sales representative from an authorised Rolex dealership. I didn't name the dealership or indeed the individual that I was speaking to. Given the benefit of hindsight and a night to sleep on it, I think perhaps it wasn't the smartest of moves, and I've subsequently removed that video just to be on the safe side. But I wanted to make a follow-up to that this evening. I've made a few notes, hope you don't mind if I refer to them, but I had a lot of comments on that video. I would say the vast majority of them were very much in favour, and the vast majority of people totally got and understood the important points of that video and what it revealed. There were a small number of people out there who just simply failed to get what I was trying to achieve and what I was trying to tell you guys. Now, I don't know whether to focus on the positive or the negative, but I think tonight, for this video at least, and I hope you'll forgive me for doing so, I'm going to focus on actually the negatives, the guys that had a bit of a go at me. One person suggested that I hammered this young girl. I mean, what an absolutely ridiculous statement that was. Let me get it absolutely clear for anyone that didn't see that video. I rang up an authorised dealer and simply asked about the possibility or the availability on a stainless steel Starbucks Rolex Submariner date. That was all I asked. And I was told, and I've written down some quotes that the young lady, who I said during the video was very nice, she was very polite, very professional, and I was polite to her. It was suggested by one or two people that the poor girl must be sick of taking those phone calls all day. Poor soul. I mean, really. I mean, come on, guys, blimey. I mean, that's her job, taking phone calls. But I'll come to that in a second. She started off right at the very beginning, and my simple question was, what's the availability on a Starbucks Rolex Submariner? And she said to me, and these are her own words, it's not something that's available to buy. Now think about that for a minute. It's not something that's available to buy. Those were her precise words. Now, if it's not something that's available to buy, and some of you guys out there, as I say, in a very small minority, but some of you guys out there felt sorry for this young lady because she has to take that phone call a few times a day to earn her money. I find that unbelievable, but there you go. Some of you felt that way. If it's not available to buy, then why do Rolex put it on their website as a production piece? Wouldn't they be better off advertising it as a special order only? And then that would save that poor girl and all her friends that work in authorised dealers the trouble of speaking to people like me who dare ask if a watch is available. Guys, for those of you out there that felt that I hassled the girl by asking her, by having the cheek to ask if I could buy a Rolex Submariner, maybe she's in the wrong job if that upsets her. I don't think she was upset at all. I thought she handled the call very nicely and very professionally. But she did clearly say that this is something that's not available to buy. So as I say, if it's not available to buy, take it off your website, mark it as special order only, and that would stop a lot of the phone calls and people inquiring each and every day. And obviously the authorised dealers do get sick of the inquiries, but speak to Rolex. Don't ever go at me. It's no good shooting the messenger. You know, you can't ever go at someone for merely making an inquiry to see if they could buy a watch. Because, by the way, if she said there was one available, I would have bought it. So I wasn't phoning up to mess her about. I wanted to know what the availability was. But then the fishing started, didn't it? Now, this was a point that came up on 2 or 3 of the comments. There was one or two people said to me, it's all very well for you, Paul, what would you have said in her position? Well, it's very simple what I'd have said. Very simple. Bearing in mind that she is representing one of the biggest watch brands in the world. She's had training, all authorised dealer workers have training, etc. Her answer, when that watch wasn't available, and I started to ask her, were there any other ways that I could get that watch? She simply should have said, that's not the way that Rolex do business, sir. And that would have been the end of the conversation. That would have been a professional answer, a professional ending. It would have brought my inquiry to an end in a professional manner. That's not the way that Rolex do business, sir. That's the way that she should have dealt with it and the way that I personally would have dealt with it. But instead of that, we started to get involved in the fishing, didn't we? Questions like, have you shopped with us in the past. I don't really see why that's relevant, although I do understand that some branches might want to serve their loyal customers first, and I do get that part. But I don't really see that have you shopped with us before is totally relevant. We're not buying a cure for cancer or a cure for COVID here. We're talking about buying a pretty regular standard production watch. When I asked how much I'd need to spend to get one, she replied, and I felt rather sheepishly, we can't really say. She went on, it's not about how much you spend necessarily, it's about what you spend it on. Now, just let that sink in for a moment, guys. I've made a simple phone call to see if I can buy a Rolex sub. Within a minute or two of the conversation taking place, I'm being sucked into what else I might be prepared to buy before I get the chance to buy a Submariner. She won't actually say how much I've got to spend, but does go on to say that if I spend it on jewellery, that would be ideal. That was her exact words. Jewellery is ideal. And some of you guys then went on to moan that I baited her a little bit, and one guy suggested that I hammered her. Well, I would suggest that he needs a complete rethink about his definition of hammering. I was polite and courteous to that girl at every step of the way, and I only asked fair questions that anyone, any customer would be asking, the same questions that you guys would ask if you rung up. She also went on to talk about how hot these watches were and that they know that these watches make a lot over list online, etc. Now, I never mentioned that, she did, and this is the ironic part. You know, they talk about, they get uptight. Like she said, we don't want people making profit on our watches. So making a profit is fine to these authorised dealers, as long as it's not you that's making it. I just want to make that one clear. And again, I asked her how much I would have to spend to get one, and she replies, it depends on how long you'd like to wait. Now, let me just go through that once again. I asked her how much I would have to spend to get a Rolex Submariner, and she replied, it depended on how long I'd like to wait. Let that sink in. What does it mean? How long you'd like to wait? In other words, if you open your wallet wide enough, you can pretty much have one anytime you want. That's the way I took it, and she persistently tried to get me to go in store to discuss it further. I'm not quite sure what there was to discuss any further. I was asking about buying a simple one Rolex sports watch, and again I asked her how much I would have to spend. I kept trying to get this out of her, and in the end she said, well, it's however much you'd like to spend. However much you'd like to spend. Remember, we're not talking about spending this money on the product that you want and that you've inquired about. We've now drifted, we've moved the goalposts, and we're talking about how much you'd like to spend on products that you haven't inquired about. And I don't honestly get which part of this conversation that some of you guys didn't get. And it was only a small percentage, but I do want to answer my critics, as it's very easy for me to go through the comments, clicking on the hearts and telling everyone I love what you say, but at the same time I do like to respond to those that don't agree with me. That's all part of it. It's just as much fun, sometimes at least, reading why you guys disagree as to why you guys agree with what I'm saying. I mean, I've got to be honest, and some people might not like this, but I felt that a few of you guys out there fell for that very attractive female European accent. I mean, honestly, I wonder if you'd have felt the same way if it would have been a guy speaking, for example. I'm sure that some of you went all soft just because it was a woman on the other end of the phone. And at the end of the conversation, she said, again, look, there's a lot of things we can discuss whilst you're in store. I mean, like what? I wasn't asking her for a date. All I wanted to do was find out if I could buy a stainless steel Rolex Submariner, and we went round and round and round the houses with lots and lots of innuendo and things that weren't very clear, although in other ways they were quite clear. It was quite clear to me that Rolex as a brand, the hot Rolex watches, are just being used as bait, to be honest. They're being used as bait, they're being held hostage to try and get people into their stores to spend as much as possible on other goods before they get even the chance to buy a Rolex. Now again, one or two people out there said that, well, all businesses like that, that's the way the business world goes around. No, it's not at all. Absolutely, that's absolute nonsense. Yes, there are plenty of businesses that will try and suck you in, but this has a more sinister tone to it, to me. This is you know, people call pre-owned dealers grey dealers. Well, I tell you what, the way that conversation went yesterday, it doesn't get a lot greyer than that, does it? I got no straight answers whatsoever, no prices whatsoever. I wasn't told how much I'd need to spend whatsoever. It was insinuated that I could get this watch depending on how far I was prepared to be bent over. It wasn't a very nice conversation at all, in the respect that it didn't leave me clear, and there was no clarification for me as a potential customer, and I certainly walked away from that conversation feeling not belittled, but I certainly wouldn't have gone to that shop. I certainly wouldn't have gone to that shop because it was made quite clear to me that I had no chance of getting what I wanted unless I was prepared to spend a lot of money on things that I just didn't want. And I think ultimately, summing up on this one at least, my message is this: look, there's a lot of ordinary people out there who just want to buy a single watch. That's why a lot of you guys watch my channel. You know, some of you said, oh, we've heard it all before. Well, if you've heard it before, you don't have to watch, guys. In fact, if you think you can do a better job, be my guest. I mean, I'd love to see someone else taking on some of the topics that I try and take on your behalf. But I look at it like this. It's almost come to the point where walking into an authorised dealer is almost becoming a complete waste of time, unless you want something a little bit more standard, like a Datejust, etc. If you want a sports watch, it seems to me that as we approach 2021, if you want anything that's even remotely hot, you are going to have to be prepared to spend a lot of money on other things, and that may be all very well if that's what you want. If you want a watch from another brand, I would never suggest buying jewellery from those sort of outfits, because for me the markup's heavy and the quality's not as good as it can be. If you shop in places like Hatton Garden, for instance, there'll be a lot better value. But what's the point in even asking them these days? What is the point in even asking for a watch from these sort of authorised dealers? And frankly, I would just boycott them the moment. I mean, look, sure, I've said it in a video the other day. Let me be clear on something. If you can get the watch that you want, in this day and age, the best place to buy it is from your authorised dealer. If you can't get that watch from your authorised dealer and they start to play games with you, inviting you in, trying to drag you in and suck you in into their, you know, look, you spend £20,000 with us and we'll give you a box of chocolates, call you a VIP and give you a glass of champagne. Well, 20 grand buys you a lot of champagne and a lot of chocolates. Watch people, doesn't it? My suggestion to you is that if it's made clear to you in these authorised dealers that you're not going to get the watch that you want without spending a shed load of money on things that you don't want, just walk away. And I would very much appreciate if you looked at them in the eye and said, look, I know what you're doing and I don't appreciate this. This is not the way that a company like Rolex or a company representing the Rolex brand should be behaving. And as I said to you, going back towards the start of the video, a number of people wanted to know how I would have approached my phone call. And I'll say it again, the way it should have been dealt with, and the way you should deal with authorised dealers that try and trick you or try and push you into buying things you don't want. That's not the way that Rolex should be doing business. That's the way I see it, watch people. And I just want to finish by saying, look, I make all of these videos with your best interests at heart. And I thank you all, each and every one of you, for the wonderful support, the encouraging comments that you leave for me. I really appreciate it. But sometimes it's also good to answer some of the critics. I'm not afraid of answering critics. One small word, I'll just finish on one small word. I actually banned a couple of people from posting on my channel yesterday in the comments section. And I have banned quite a number of people over the last 18 months. And I really, really hate banning people from commenting on any of my videos. And I will let each individual go. I'll give them every single chance that I possibly can. One poster that I banned yesterday, I've been keeping an eye on for almost 6 months. Pretty much every time he posts a message, it's always a comment that's derogatory, that's a little bit snidey or a little bit out of the box. It's not quite right, but I've let it go for 6 months. And then I got another one yesterday after this video, and I thought, you know what, that enough is enough. I don't have enough time to read some of the garbage that the trolls leave for me. And I want you all to continue to post your comments and your thoughts. You don't have to agree with me. All I ask is that you keep it polite. I think the bottom line is that my rule is this: as soon as you stop being polite in your response to me, that's the line. You step across the line of politeness or decency, and then you're banned. It's as simple as that. And I hate doing that. And I felt very bad about banning 2 individuals yesterday. But when I read their comments again and again and again before making that decision, ultimately it was the right decision. It's right for me, and it's right for other people that like to read through the comments section as well. Guys, thanks for listening tonight, and thanks for bearing with me while I have a little rant. It's always good to get some bits and pieces off your chest. I've got some good bits coming up for you in the next couple of weeks or so. So stick with us. Very much appreciate a thumbs up, and of course could do your subscribing. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll speak to you again soon.